He's a sergeant. So he's a 1st Division patrol sergeant, and he's also on our SWAT team. He was one of the commanders at Shanks. Casse. It's pronounced Cassie. You'll hear from Nick Owen, Owen, and you all know Deputy Chief Emily McKinley as well. So 4 total people speaking today. And obviously at the end, we'll open it up to you all for as long as you want. Anybody not balanced? Sound good for everybody? Okay. I will disappear momentarily and then we'll get started.
Everybody good to go? All right. Good morning. Welcome to the LMPD biweekly press conference. We like to take advantage of the opportunity to give you, the community, you, the media, updated information as much as we can. And so we'll continue with this trend. One of the things I'll say to you all, the media gathered here, and you can spread that word to your people, is if there are things that you hear from the community that they want explained more in depth, or they want us to be able to feature, please let us know, because we want to take advantage of this. And you'll see, we'll talk about some SWAT operations to feature different parts of the department so that we can explain and educate the public better on how we operate, what we do, and why we do the things that we do. So we want to make sure that we get that in too. So when you have those questions that can't be explained in a soundbite, let us know, and we'll try to work that into these biweekly briefings. And we'll start off with our biweekly crime briefing that'll come from Assistant Chief Nick Owen.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here. It's Assistant Chief Nick Owen, NICEN. I am the Assistant Chief over the Support Bureau here at LMPD. I'll be very brief, just to update you guys on some crime numbers. These are all year-to-date numbers. You see 2024, we're at 119 compared to 113. I believe these are accurate as of Monday or yesterday. So we are seeing a 5.3% increase. Non-fatal shootings, as you can see, we're at 291 year-to-date versus 313 year-to-date 2023, so a 7% decrease there. In robberies, and these are specific to carjackings, 120 in 2024 compared to 114 year-to-date 23, so a 5% change there. Obviously, we are not satisfied with any increase at all, and even not satisfied with a 7% decrease in non-fatal shootings. We'd obviously want those numbers to be much, much lower. I think you've heard the chief talk about the comprehensive crime plan, not just from us, not just from Metro government, but community-wide, getting folks involved. You'll be seeing more about that in the near future. Significant arrest data, year-to-date homicide arrests, we've had 40, non-fatal shooting arrests, 64, and we partner with various federal agencies, namely out of our criminal interdiction division, and year-to-date they have 53 federal indictments, which is a fairly significant number for it being October, and there will be more to come on the federal indictments. Next, I'd like to bring up Sergeant Joel Cassie with our SWAT team. He's going to highlight a recent successful operation that they had out in our community. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Like Lieutenant Colonel said, I am Sergeant Joel Cassie, Joelcasse. I'm a sergeant with our 1st Division, which is responsible for downtown, Russell, Portland neighborhoods, and I'm also a member of our SWAT team. Like I said, we're going to highlight an incident we had on September 10th, where the SWAT team responded to a potential hostage rescue incident in the 3400 block of Shank Lane at the request of Patrol and our domestic violence unit. Patrol responded that day to reports of a victim who was struck by a vehicle and then dragged into the same vehicle against her will near the area of Rockford Lane. Per several witnesses, the victim was unconscious when she was put in the vehicle. The suspect then drove the victim to the Shanks Lane address and was forced inside of an apartment where she was not allowed to leave. Patrol was able to locate the vehicle based on witness information and was able to confirm the location of the apartment. The domestic violence unit then responded and took over the investigation and began drafting a search warrant for the location, which was later signed by a judge. SWAT and H&T were then requested and responded to the location. During the investigation, it was believed that the suspect was armed with a weapon and or had access to weapons. H&T, our hostage negotiation team, was able to make contact with the victim, who told negotiators she would come out, but she would never actually leave, leading us to believe that she was being held against her will. SWAT was operating under the information known at the time that the victim was not free to leave, could have sustained serious physical injury during the initial incident, and the hostage taker was armed. Based on the nature of the reports and the victim's inability to leave, SWAT developed a plan to make an emergency entry to make a hostage rescue. Plans were then made to breach a common wall to provide an entry point for us, as well as multiple windows and a primary entry door, giving us a positive breach and a speedy entry to rescue the hostage. With the help of the hostage negotiation team, we were able to confirm the victim's location in the apartment and that we had separation from the victim and the hostage taker. With that confirmation of the victim's location, the plan was executed and SWAT made entry into the apartment. Upon entry, officers located the victim and placed themselves between her and the suspect and any other potential threats. SWAT officers then located the suspect, who complied with officers and went to the ground, and no force was necessary. The victim was escorted out of the apartment and was immediately seen by Louisville Metro EMS, who was staged at the location per our request. And a later search of the apartment, we did locate a loaded .40 caliber handgun that was recovered, along with a large quantity of suspected crack cocaine in a bag containing pills suspected to be fentanyl. Now, from here, I'm going to show you a video from a couple of the officers that made entry. There's 2 videos that are going to be side by side. I'm going to show the video twice. If you want to kind of just focus on one side at first, because there's a lot of chaos going on in it, focus on one, and then I'll replay it back and we'll show it again.
We're in. Come on. I want you to go. Hey, we're all through me. Keep going. Hey, two left. Stop. All right, listen, you're going to roll towards me. Yes, sir. 3, 2, 1. Stand up. We're bringing now over the hallway. Yes, sir. We have a Follow it up, huh? Stop. Move that foot up. You're good.
Going the wrong way. Apologize. So, like I said, that was chaos scene, multiple people going in at the same time, loud noises going off. And if you see the two officers are going different directions, that's based on our training. A lot of trust goes in the SWAT team that I know if I go one way, another SWAT officer is going to go the other way, and they have my back. And so there's a lot that goes into this video that I can see. And if we slow it down, we can really break it down. But it doesn't highlight the amount of training and time that goes into an operation like this and how critical this was. And so I don't know which one you focus on. I'm going to play it one more time. And just so you get, now you might have a better opportunity to kind of slow down and see exactly what we're looking at.
We're in. Come. I want you to go. Hey, we're all through me. Keep going. Hey, two left. Stop. Listen, you're gonna roll towards me.
And I think what's important to note too in that video, the first time we played all the way through, is that even after SWAT officers made entry, chaotic situation, subject possibly armed with a handgun, holding somebody against their will, the restraint and the compassion that officers showed, that at the time the suspect complied, he got on the ground, no force was necessary. They took him in custody without incident. These are highly trained individuals who, when they went through that door, there was a real possibility that somebody was on the other end that was armed with a handgun. And these officers were willing to put themselves in danger in order to protect an innocent life. And oftentimes hostage rescue in the police community, as well as in the SWAT community, is referred to the Super Bowl, that it's the pinnacle of what we train for. And while I agree with that is the pinnacle of what we're training for, it's not a game. These were life and death consequences that if we didn't act immediately, life could be in danger. And the officers going through that door's life were in danger, and they executed flawlessly. And I also want to point out that while this was a team effort as far as the SWAT team, the domestic violence unit, patrol, none of this would have been capable without somebody from the community calling and saying, this is what happened. And then multiple people from the community saying, this is where this is happening right now. Without any of that, we would have never responded there. And there's no telling what possibly could have happened to this victim, because that's what she was a victim. And as you can see, this is our suspect from that arrest, Mr. Artis Chenault. His charges include kidnapping with serious physical injury, assault first degree, wanton endangerment first degree, trafficking controlled substance multiple times, as well as trafficking marijuana and drug paraphernalia. That's it.
Thank you, Sergeant Cassie. Just want to point out what the SWAT team responds to is those are our most high-risk situations. So armed criminal barricades, hostage rescue situations, high-risk warrant service, those situations where your average police response does not have the resources or the capabilities to handle in that moment in time. But I'll also point out that every one of these situations begins with a patrol officer responding to it. And we've seen those responses, and we understand that patrol has to be ready for those things. This is a team effort. You had the real-time crime center that was involved in this, detectives that were involved in this, patrol officers, the community. People's lives were saved because of all of that working together at the right time. So one of the things that I want to discuss is at the promotions last week, you saw some new imagery, some new ways of talking about LMPD and some of our new images with our logo and the one mission, one metro theme. And so I'll have a newly appointed Deputy Chief Emily McKinley to come up and explain some of that background to that.
Thank you, Chief. And I'll echo his words about SWAT. I was never on SWAT them were, but they do excellent work every day in our community to keep everybody safe. This example is one of many. I know yesterday, subject that they were able to talk out of a house and resolve safely without any issues. So today, I'm sure Sergeant Cassie was more nervous up here talking to you all than he is when he's doing those operations. So he's fully prepared to do those, and we appreciate the work they do every day. But like Chief said, that last Friday at the promotion ceremony, we unveiled a new comprehensive crime strategy. We discussed that briefly, that will be rolled out. And we keep alluding to that in the near future. And we also unveiled some new logos, a new recruitment video. So we wanted to display that here, kind of discuss it, give the why behind that, go over that. This look kind of refreshes our commitment to the community and to our service. We've centered the concept around our values of service and respect and the commitment to enhancing community safety here in Louisville and doing that together. The one Metro, one mission, you'll notice the M's are two ones coming together. So that we wanted to symbolize that it's not just the police department, it's the community working together, one Metro, one mission to keep everybody safe. Another example of an image that you might see around our city or on social media, building a safer, stronger Louisville for everyone. So this is our vision, that we are united, actively collaborating with the community, striving to improve the quality of life for all people here in Louisville. These are another examples of images or billboards that you might see around your different neighborhoods here in Louisville. So our police department is an extension of all of our communities here in Louisville, and every neighborhood in Louisville Metro is important. And we wanted to symbolize that here. And so we hope to have these up in various communities around Louisville, representing all of our unique neighborhoods. And then this is more of a recruitment concept here. So every officer joins the department for different reasons, but we all have the same as far as service. And so we wanted to have the ability to interchange stand for different things. So stand for more, and interchange different words in there that might resonate with different members of our community who might be interested in joining the police department. So these are just different examples of the new look and refreshed look that you might see on our social media or on billboards around the community. And we wanted to share that with you all. Now I'll turn it over to Chief to discuss the masks.
So here comes the fun part, because I know y'all have all been really interested in two comments that got made between me and the mayor about the ordinance that bans masks. Here's the deal, is that we are not creating some new initiative or anti-mask task force. We understand there are legitimate health reasons why people wear masks, but we also understand there are people who are taking advantage of that. And they are using masks to conceal their identity in order to prey on the community. And we see it time and time again. If you're telling me that somebody is standing around in a hoodie and gloves and a mask covering their face, outside lurking in the shadows, has a legitimate health concern, I would probably beg to differ. And so you have to understand, when we talk about something like masks and the enforcement of the mask ordinance, that's about a totality of circumstances. It's not about going out and targeting people who have health issues or are wearing a mask for legitimate reasons. It's about understanding the entire situation, the entire circumstances. And is that another tool that we might be able to use or explore to fight violent crime? There are tons of tools out there. Some are more useful than others. This is just one thing that we might be looking at. But I wanted to give you a couple of views of some of the crimes that we've had committed recently with people who have been wearing masks, and they're not wearing them for legitimate reasons. They are trying to commit crimes, and they're trying to conceal their identity. This is not uncommon. Obviously, we talked about this happened in the shooting out at PRP, where you have kids wearing masks. You see this time and time again. We even currently have a serial murderer on the loose down at the bottom. You can see it. We don't know how this movie ends with that guy. He keeps coming back time and time again. That's a joke. It's okay to laugh at it. That's Michael Myers. I know I'm not funny, but sometimes I try. So, and I say that to make light of it a little bit, because we're not trying to talk about cracking down on Halloween masks for kids on the holidays or people who are sick. This is really about those other people that are using these to conceal their identity when committing crimes. It happens over and over again. You saw it in the attempted carjacking of one of our officers when they end up involved in an officer-involved shooting. Guy comes up in the middle of an alley with a mask on and sticks a gun in an officer's face, and we end up in an officer-involved shooting. So it's a serious issue. We're just looking at this as being one tool in the tool with some of the violent crime that we have going on. And lastly, since Police Academy is ongoing, that's put on by our unit. If you have interest in that, go to our website, reach out to our community unit. We put that on a regular interval so people in the community can understand a little bit more about what goes on internally to the police department and how we operate more in depth. And then some of our community gathering events between the South End Neighborhood Watch meeting, the Southwest Festival, and an LMPD in conjunction with Texas Roadhouse are doing a trunk or treat on the 15th. I also want you to be aware, big event again this weekend, just kind of like last weekend. It seems like we're hitting all of these fall events back and forth, or back to back. The St. James Art Festival will be starting up soon. So if you're in old Louisville, be aware of that for traffic reasons. But come out, enjoy the event, and have a good time. It's one of the seminal events for Louisville, as you all know. So at this time, I will open it up to questions, which I'm sure you have some.
Let's start with the mask. There's a lot to unpack today. I understand what you're saying about the totality of circumstances that you have to evaluate these cases, but how do you pull this off without profiling?
There's really not a lot to unpack about it, right? It is a totality of circumstances, and that's how you pull it off without profiling, is that you have to look at all of the conditions of the situation. We're not talking about the every single person wearing a mask. We do have to look at the behavior that they're displaying, what they're doing at the time, and those types of things, what time of day it is, the weather conditions, like all of this adds up to whether or not we should speak to somebody. And we know it's evidence-based that police contacts with people can either delay, stop, or prevent crime. And this is, like I said, this isn't us going out. I'm not giving some order to officers go out and enforce the mask ordinance, right? This is just another tool that we can be aware of that adds to the totality of circumstances.
So explain, what does the ordinance allow you to do in these situations? Does anyone wearing a mask invite intervention from the police?
Not necessarily. So that's one of the things that has been missed in this, is that the ordinance gives several conditions for which masks are appropriate. But that's one of the things that the mayor is doing currently, is he's reaching out to Metro Council members to more clearly define the times when we should or can stop people. So this is, like I said, this isn't something that we're going out and doing tomorrow or right now. This was literally something that came up as a conversation point about potential tactics to use. So I don't want to put too much focus on it like this is our crime strategy. It's literally one bit of one thing that might add to our ability to intervene on violent crime.
Okay. Walk me through a typical intervention in a case like this. You walk up to someone wearing a mask, do you immediately arrest them, ask them questions? Well, how does it work?
No, that is just like anything else when it comes. So the question was, do we just walk up and immediately arrest somebody in a mask? Absolutely not. That's not the point. That is not the point of how we do criminal interdiction, period. Right? There are times when you have probable cause to make arrest before you ever contact someone, and we can do that, right? But that takes a level of a burden of proof that is pretty high, probable cause. you also have a level of reasonable suspicion that crime is afoot, is what the law requires, right? And so when you have a totality of circumstances based on all those things that I talked about, when you're talking about the person's behavior, the environment that they're in, the time of day, crime, the information that you have about crime going on in that specific localized area, those things all add up, right? And so as we talk to people, sometimes we develop more suspicion that leads us to continue an investigation. And so that's what this is about. To your point about profiling, that is obviously something that we have to be aware of. And that is you combat profiling through information. So the better information and the better training that we give officers so that they have a solid understanding of what they're looking for, that gives them an indication that crime is afoot, which is what the law requires, the less likely we are to run into situations of profiling. Can we give somebody else a chance?
Sure. So we got a lot of comments, a lot of questions, a lot of emails about, will this actually work? This is just for show. This is just for show. That's what we got a lot. Is there evidence that this will work, or is it just for show?
You're talking about masks. Is there evidence that this will work?
The mask ordinance, yeah.
What there's evidence of is that police interaction works to. So like I said, this is one piece of a larger tool set that works. When we stop people, when we make more arrests, crime goes, write more tickets, traffic deaths go down. We have to be proactive in our policing. To David's point, we do have to be very aware that there are risks that come along with everything that we do. And we have to be aware of that. And officers are very aware of that. But we have to use those tools available to us to keep people safe.
What about the comments about criminals are not concerned about ordinance? They could care less about it. Is this being used as a deterrent in any way? Or?
No, I absolutely agree. I mean, we see crimes getting committed every day. And if they had the social pressure to not do those, then they wouldn't be killing each other and they wouldn't be robbing, right? So what is the deterrent is our interaction. The piece of paper is not a deterrent, right? A piece of paper doesn't mean anything to you. Why do you pull over when the police get behind you when you're speeding, right? You speed, right? We all speed on occasion, right? So there are social consequences to every activity, right? The vast majority of us have determined that the social consequences of speeding are not high enough to prevent us from speeding. Most of us will do 5 or 10 miles over the speed limit, because if you get pulled over, you're going to stop, you're going to get a ticket, and nobody in your social circle is going to say to you, you're a horrible person. I don't want to associate with you. Your job's not going to fire you, and there'll be no consequences except for a couple $100s on your speeding ticket. The consequences of not pulling over for you are far too high. So you will not take that risk to run from the police, right? We also understand that there are other people that those social consequences are not high enough for even larger crimes. So they will go out and they will rob people and they will hurt people and they will prey on people. So the consequence has to be there. We are the consequence for those people when they don't have the social consequences built in around them to prevent them from doing those things.
Do you have any updates on the PRP shooting, arrests made, or conditions of the team who was in critical last time?
I do not have any more updates. Do we have any more updates on that? The last update was that he was still in critical condition. Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell me if the victims were targeted in this case?
I can't tell you that. We have some pretty good information about some things that happened. We do have some good video. But as far as the motive and the known relationship between the two parties, I don't know that.
Who has the video? You guys or JCP?
Our detectives are working on that.
They have surveillance video.
Our detectives have worked with JCPS. JCPS has been very cooperative with us in this situation. So yes, our detectives have that video.
Who will be released?
That's going to be case specific. When it comes to releasing information in these types of cases, we have to depend on the detectives to understand whether or not releasing certain information at a certain time is going to be damaging to the investigation. In all honesty, I'm not sure that they're going to be happy about me telling you that it's on video, that we have video of the suspects, but we do. And so they're working on that. Yes, sir.
I had a question about some of the data that we showed. When it came up, I think about a month ago at one of Mayor Greenberg's press conferences, this increase in the number of homicides year over year. He had said that the administration and LMPD were working on new strategies, new investments, new initiatives to address homicides. And it's now a month later, haven't really heard much. When do we expect to hear more about what LMPD is doing differently, given that homicides are on the rise when they're declining in most other major cities?
Right. So the question is, what are we doing differently since we've heard that we're going to be making changes as far as addressing violent crime, yet we still have an increased homicide rate? One of the things that we've already done, you've heard a lot about GVI and our group violence intervention. I think there were some missing links in the way that we were doing group violence intervention. And particularly, I think on the LMPD side, I think there were some communication gaps about how that information for those interventions and trying to get people out of that lifestyle. There's a carrot and a stick aspect to group violence intervention. And frankly, we had a huge gap that was creating a problem on our enforcement side of dealing with these groups. We have since transferred the group violence intervention program over into CID, our criminal interdiction division, so that we bridge that gap. So that information is shared more readily for their investigations. And I think you're actually going to see, we already have a couple of indictments that we're going to be working on soon related to that. We just had a meeting with prosecutors and the attorney general yesterday about the success or lack thereof of that project. So that's very important. And then what you saw was the preliminary rollout of a strategic crime plan last Friday. And so that is about also getting all the way down to the patrol officer level of what role they're expected to play in violent crime. And so I know everybody wants to see this 2-week, 28-day turnaround and just this drastic change. We have a serious crime issue. We can throw a task force at this and we can have this 2-week drop in homicides, which actually you've seen over the past 2 weeks. We've had a pretty good success last 2 or 3 weeks in our homicide rate and our shooting rate. But we have to have long-term strategies that affect this. And I think that's part of what the profession has gotten wrong several times. Task forces are great for temporary solutions, but we have to put strategies together that are long-term and actually stick with them. So we want to make sure we roll that out the right way, get everybody on board that this isn't just this particular unit or this particular person that's doing this, but this is all of us that have to combat the issue. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and when you mentioned the gap, you mean there was a gap on the stick side of the equation?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we have some of these people, look, we're offering resources because we want people to change their lifestyle. But when they don't change their lifestyle, we need to go get them. You've been put on notice that we know you are highly likely the next shooter or the next victim. So we've already given you second chance, third chance, fourth chance. We're going to take all your chances. Cooperate.
So many changes in LMPD when you meet the chief. Can you talk about the decision to include the rebranding as part of that process as the department moves forward, and how do you hope the community responds to that?
I think the rebranding or reimaging of some of our the way that we talk about the department. You know, everybody's talked about cultural change. That's part of it. Simple things like imagery affects how we talk about each other. It affects how we communicate with each other. And that's very important. And so we wanted, you know, those promotions last week to be a demarcation point of this is the direction we're going in. We are one Metro internally as one LMPD. We are all working to the same goal. Like I was just saying to Roberto, this isn't about the success of one unit. You know, we just talked about the SWAT operation. We could give all this glory to SWAT and say, you know, they're amazing. And I would never say that just because I was on the team. But that was also a joke. But that doesn't happen without the cooperation of, like I said, about 5 or 6 different groups, including the community. So that's what this is about. It's about understanding that we're all playing for the same team and trying to achieve the same goals, right? And that's internal to LMPD, internal to Metro government, and collectively with the community.
The Inspector General has relaunched an investigation into a 2019 party involving LMPD. What are your thoughts on this?
I'll be honest, I'm a little confused. That case was investigated in 2015. Over 50 people were interviewed. It was a hearsay case to start. The only supposed witness had fourth-hand information, and I haven't got any information from the OIG on what he's investigating on his new anonymous complaint or how this involves the public, which gives him the authority to investigate in the first place. So I'm still waiting to hear from the OIG on. I don't know what he's doing. So
Were you or any of your command staff at this party?
I was not. So I'm going to let the internal part of the investigation work itself out. But it does involve people who are currently on the command staff and within LMPD. But like I said, that was an investigation 5 years ago. Over 50 people were interviewed. And I'm still waiting to hear what the OIG has to say about it. It was proved to be unfounded at the time. So I don't know what he's investigating.
Back to the PRP shooting for 1 second. Do we know how many gunmen and if they were teenagers as well?
We do know that there was more than, and the question was how many gunmen in the PRP. So, yes, sir. Go for it.
Okay. On September 5th, we did a story about items going missing from cars about to be auctioned at the LMPD impound on Frankfurt Avenue. Our open records request for video inside the auction within the tow log was denied, saying it's part of an active investigation. Do you have any idea when there will be an update on this situation?
I don't have an idea when there'll be an update on that particular investigation, but that is something that I am aware of, and trust me, you will know what the outcome of that investigation is.
Anybody else?
Yes, sir. Roberto.
I got a question. It's very specific from another reporter, but is LMPD able to confirm if there's been copper wiring theft over at Highway Lights next to Landon Park in Portland?
If there's been copper theft from the lighting in Landon Park in Portland, no, I can't confirm or deny that. I mean, that is very specific. I will tell you that copper theft is an issue. There is actually a task force related to it, an intergovernmental task force, because it's a critical infrastructure problem. It's not just a metal theft problem. When you're starting to shut down phone lines and you're shutting down electricity and lighting and things like that, it's no longer just an issue of you have an addiction and you're feeding that addiction. This is a serious issue. And so this is another one of those places where we're having interaction between multiple parts of the government as well as the private sector to work on that. So, and I will say, I know you didn't ask, but I'll kind of, as another part of that, when we talk about the crime plan, I think you were the one that asked me the other day about, like, what is the difference between this and what we've talked about before? And it is that accountability part of, so we have for short-term crime issues week to week internally, we have a ComStat meeting, right? Where we're challenging the division commanders of, these are the problems that you're having in your division. What are you doing about them? Has that plan worked? And do we need to change strategies? So for the comprehensive crime plan, this is about having everybody at the table, all of those other governmental entities, and saying, all right, we've identified this area or this location as having problems. We have LMPD needs to do A, B, and C. Works needs to do these things. So-and-so needs to do these things. All right. Have they been done? If not, what is the status of them? And if they have been done, what is the effect of them? So that is the accountability piece of crime plan that you were asking about last week, David, is that I think we've missed that, of that check-in moment and that follow-up moment of everybody has to be on the same page and hold each other accountable to making sure that we're getting all of this done. So anything else? All right. Appreciate it. Have a good afternoon.